right, welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of the Flyin Around podcast here at Frontier Anglers in Dillon, Montana. I'm Steve Wilson, and
I'm Sean Jazenka, the owner and outfitter here at Frontier Anglers.
So today we're just going to spend our first podcast, I think, talking a little bit about ourselves. For those of you that don't know us, haven't been in the shop, haven't fished with me or Sean, we're just going to, I think, take a little bit of time to introduce you to ourselves, and then in future episodes we'll dive into it. So take it away, Sean.
I was fortunate to be a fourth generation born here in Montana, grew up on the banks of the Blackfoot River, and so fishing was a pretty major part of my life, even from a really young age. I was also fortunate enough to have a grandfather who never said no a single time that I can remember when it came to going fishing, whether that be the Blackfoot, the Bitterroot, the Clark Fork, what have you. I kind of had an epiphany. I think I was in about the 7th or 8th grade one day, and my grandpa and I are out there fishing the Clark Fork somewhere upstream of Missoula. And here comes this boat, which back in like 1982, you just didn't see boats on the river. It was not a big thing, particularly in that part of the state. So my grandpa, on the way back, he's cussing and swearing, "Oh, it's a fishing guide. One day he's going to ruin this, And I'm thinking to myself, like, wow, that guy got paid and he's taking people fishing. He's floating down the river. I'm going to look into this stuff."
Yeah.
So I kind of knew, I think, from that point, or at least early on in high school, that this was where I was going to be someday. And here I am now, the owner of Frontier Anglers and a large outfitter in southwest Montana, guided all over the world, including Montana, for 35 years. And it was just it's been a lifelong progression. Sometimes it stalled, sometimes it went backwards a little bit. But here I am, and I wouldn't change a thing if I could. Yeah. So tell us a little about yourself, Steve. I know you've got a pretty, you've done a lot of things and had your foot into even more corners of the fly fishing world than I have.
Well, I didn't have the pleasure of growing up in Montana, but I got here as quick as I could. I moved out in 2004 to the state of Montana, but prior to that, I grew up in East Texas. Grew up a bass angler. My dad bought a bass boat, and that was just kind of what we did. There's not much to do in Texas to enjoy the outdoors if you don't hunt or fish, and hunting was even more limited than fishing. So we bought a bass boat. We got out there on the weekends, and we enjoyed it quite a bit. Well, then my dad took a job in the state of Washington, and so we had to completely relearn fishing. We didn't know much about trout fishing. We figured out how to fish salmon eggs and drift them through the creek and catch some fish. Well, Dave Bliss, he was the owner of the White Pass Sports Hut in Packwood, Washington, taught me how to rig a dry fly with a casting bubble. And so for the first time, all of a sudden, I'm seeing fish rise to dry flies and catching them and hooking them. And eventually, I think it was a birthday or end of school year present or something like that, I got given a Cortland outfit and actually was able to get out there and do some real dry fly fishing. But my friend Kurt Reed, he's still an outfitter in the Port Angeles area. He really kind of got me going and got me dialed in, and his dad fly fished, and they had the coolest stuff, all the sage rods, all the pontoon boats and stuff at their house. So his house was fun to visit and look at their photos, and I just really was kind of enamored, like, this is really cool. And when I moved out to Montana, there were times I'd be out fishing on the Gallatin and calling Kurt with my cell phone, like, what the hell do I do here? I'm not catching a damn thing. So anyway, fast forward a few years, I get into it. I met Robert Edens when I was boat shopping there at Road Drift Boats. I bought a used Yellowstone drifter out of his, or the Tippy Canoe, as some people referred to him, and got out with my buddies, and we just floated and fished as much as we could. And, floating and fishing in the state of Montana, you're introduced to the guides. You're out there with them. And, you have these wonderful days on the water, and then it's time to go check into work. You pull into the gas station in Four Corners there, and here I am in a shirt and tie, and I see these guys rolling up with their Toyotas with their clackas attached to the back and flip-flops on. We're both going to work. And so I've clearly got it wrong. I caught wind of this guide school that Sweetwater Travel put on. I had a friend go through it, and actually my parents wanted to help me chase this dream a little bit. So we had some old family heirlooms, some old silver of my grandmother's that they actually sold so I could have the tuition to go and take guide school. And it was really probably pretty stupid at the time to put all my eggs in this basket of becoming a fishing guide, but I just did it anyway. Fortunately, was lucky enough to get hired by Sweetwater out of the school to work at their fly shop and to do some guiding for them. My first guide trip, too, it was on the Yellowstone River, which I'd fished quite a bit. Never at 10,000 CFS, though, when the season started. And, you know, stopping a boat's tricky at that level. So, yeah, we're fishing. My clients catch a fish or something. I'm feeling pretty tough. Well, then they break off. And then I go and try and stop. Well, you can't stop a boat at 10,000 CFS unless you're like in a really calm eddy. And so sure enough, I hop out, I try to grab the boat, and I just instantly wipe out. Before I know it, I'm underwater, holding on to my boat. Well, that secret definitely made it out after a while. There's still some guides in Livingston. If they saw me, they would call me Splash. But I was actually eventually hired to teach the guide school, which was a dream come true. You know, I really looked up to my instructors. Meeting Ron Meek and Charlie Kahn, which were kind of black belt fishing guides back in the day. They worked for Dan Vermillion, who I was aware of because he guided the president back at the time. And really lucky to get that job. And a few years later, I was brought into Dan Vermillion's office, and he told me that Ron Meek was going to be retiring, and they needed somebody to take the guide school over. And I got asked to do it, which was scary as hell, really, at the time, because I've got all these people that I look up to that were going to be working for me, basically. So to give me a little credibility, he's like, we're going to send you to Mongolia and have you guide over there. So that was kind of like double what? I mean, this is the craziest meeting with the boss I've ever had. And I just kind of walked downstairs. I was floating on air. But I had a good run. From 2015 to 2020, I guided in Mongolia for Sweetwater Travel. I ran the guide school where I got to meet a ton of cool people. And I had these black belt fishing guides, Callan Wink, Brad Kastner, Doc Davies, Josh Mills, Mariah Spoya, all these people that I worked with at some point in time and looked up to, were working for me and teaching these people. And it was a really cool team. Trouble was, I was gone all the time. I was out on the Bighorn. I was gone for 15, 16 weeks a year. And when 2020 happened, some things got shuffled with my job, with my wife's job, and we ended up in Butte, Montana. I wanted to keep guiding. But if you live in Butte and you want to guide, you're driving to the Blackfoot, you're driving to Craig, you're driving out to the Yellowstone to guide some of my old clients. And it was a pretty busy summer. Well, then fortunately, eventually I met Sean, and he needed a shop manager. And, you know, I was able to use some of my background in management. I'd done some retail management before, done some restaurant management, a little bit of marketing, and we figured it out, and I think we have a pretty cool shop here, pretty cool operation, and no, it's just really exciting to kind of relearn fly fishing down here in West Montana, and I'll say one of the more fun things about moving down here is the fish are bigger, the fishing is more diverse, and it's just been a real treat to kind of relearn the whole process here. But anyway, yeah, I love working here in the shop. I love going fishing. When I was guiding, I probably didn't fish so much, but now Sean gives me a few days off a week, and I get to get out there and.
Just as we're sitting here, I'm reminded of this story where, you know, this wormhole that you can dive into in the world of fly fishing. You know, you can dabble in it. You can have a $50 setup. You can have 6 flies. You can go twice a year, or you can just go way deep into the whole thing. And you can end up someplace else in the world you never thought you'd visit. You can encounter people that you never thought you'd have a conversation with in your life. And I explained this to Zach Brown of the Zach Brown Band. I was fishing with Zach in Tierra del Fuego on the Rio Grande, where I guided for about 20 years. And we happened to visit a fly shop of my friends in the town of Rio Grande, Tierra del Fuego, Argentina. And Zach had never been to a fly shop in his entire life, but a great guy, kind of really down-to-earth guy. I hit it off with him really well. Walked in, and he just kind of spun around about twice, and he said exactly that. He goes, I can tell this fly fishing thing is a really deep wormhole. Mm-hmm. And so here we are. I don't know how much he's continued on with it, but you and I have made a life out of it and a career, and it's provided a lot of opportunities, and met some great people. And one of the best things, as everyone knows who fly fishes, is it takes you to some of the most beautiful places on the planet, whether that be right in your backyard or another state or another country or another continent, or you name it. It's just, the opportunities are fantastic. So kind of to finish up here, so I purchased Frontier Anglers from Tim Tollett. He established and opened Frontier Anglers in about 1980. I was coming in here off and on from, like probably about 1990 on, and the store has expanded quite a bit. And if 25 years ago you told me I'd be the owner of Frontier Anglers, I'd tell you were crazy, but things happen in life. From a business perspective, it seemed like a good opportunity. Frontier Anglers, those don't know, is located in Dillon, Montana. We're about an hour south from Butte, Montana on I-15, and we're about just over an hour north of the Idaho border on 15 as well. And we sit kind of real close to the center of the donut here on a whole bunch of great fisheries, which we're going to hope to elaborate a lot upon over some upcoming episodes.
Yeah, for sure. Dillon's just a little bit out of the way. It's not Bozeman, it's not Missoula. There's no airport sitting right next to it. It's not Fort Smith, where if you're in Dillon, you're not just there just to fish. There's some cool things going on here. You can go for a drive and be at Bannock State Park, which is one of the coolest, oldest ghost towns in the West that's set up as a state park. There's actually some great fishing there on Grasshopper Creek. You're not too far from Ennis. You're not too far from Virginia City, which is one of my favorite places in the world to go and hang out with the family and act like a tourist for a little bit. So there's a little bit for everybody here in Dillon. But I think one of the cool things about it is it's not the Yellowstone, Montana.
We keep waiting for Dillon to change as we see, just vast differences in like Gallatin County, Missoula County, the Flathead area. Dillon's just kind of in a bit of a time warp down here. It's a great community, got a small university here, University of Montana Western, decent restaurants, bars, our own little brewery, shocking mountain scenery, and a plethora of streams from tailwaters to freestones to still waters, high mountain lakes. It's a fantastic place. I kind of landed here because I had some family just a few miles north of here in the Ruby Valley, so even from the time I was a young kid, I was fishing this area, and having grown up in the Missoula area where I certainly had some good fishing, I was stunned by how many and how big they were. And I've forever been just fixated with brown trout primarily, and I'd never seen anything like it. And so I knew that someday, probably my freshman year in high school, that I was going to live here. I didn't know what I was going to do. I kind of wanted to guide, but I guess I lived that dream out.
Well, so I lived in Livingston for a long time, and I don't have too many bad words to say about Livingston other than its proximity to Bozeman dooms it a little bit as far as prices and population. But, it's an incredibly diverse place. When I lived there, I guided the Yellowstone. I guided the Paradise Valley Spring Creeks, which is one of the harder days of guiding.
Similar sized town to Dillon.
Sized town to Dillon. Boulder River, Stillwater River, Yellowstone Park. Famous fisheries as they can get, but I've never seen fish the size that I saw in that area as I do down here. And I think that's a little bit of a secret. Maybe that's part of our job here. We're not here to blow up spots or anything, but when it comes to the Big Hole in Beaverhead, if you haven't fished here,
there's not a lot of secrets anymore. Right. In the age of the internet, there's really not. We used to actually be really protective of the Beaverhead River, like in the early 90s. Like, don't tell those guys about Bozeman, how good the fishing is. Well, fast forward about 5 years, I open up a fly fishing catalog, and then they're advertising a pontoon boat. And they say, perfect for the Beaverhead, the Madison. Right. I'm like, well, I guess the genie's out of the bottle on this one. And so there are very few secrets, but it still remains a fabulous place. Yeah.
No, and outside of that, the area is it's a great place to live. It's a great place to raise my kid, whether it's going to Grizz football games or Tech basketball games. It's just a great area that has a lot of family values to it, that has old school Montanans raising old school Montana kids. And I'm an out-of-stater. I'm a transplant. I've been here over 20 years, so I think that gives me a little bit of credit by now. But for those of you looking to come out that really want to experience Montana, you're not going to get that everywhere. You're not going to give that close to where you fly into an airport. And, that's one of the things that we do have here in Dillon. And it's a pretty great city. I live up in Butte, and commute down here, it's worth it. One of our favorite things to do is just if we've got a weekend to come down here, spend the weekend, go visit the Patagonia shop, go check out a couple of the restaurants downtown, walk around a little bit, go for a drive to Bannock, Virginia City. I love staycationing here. It's a great town, really is.
You've got a terrible commute. You're driving right alongside horizontal to the Pioneer Mountains, which have got like 2 or 3 of the 6 or 8 highest peaks in the state of Montana. It's a pretty good commute.
Yeah, and the sunsets and sunrises are pretty spectacular
Yeah.
as well. And it gives me time to do things like listen to podcasts. Anyway, we with this podcast, we've got a lot of things that we're eventually going to get into. I think we're going to talk about our rivers here on the next podcast, some of the fishing opportunities that are here. We want to get into some tips and tricks. We want to help you guys be better anglers. We want to less steepen the learning curve, I guess.
Exactly.
Out here for fly fishing, a fly shop has a lot of value to it. And I think in the world of Amazon and Temu and all those things out there, people have a lot of options where they get their gear, where they get their flies, where they get their rod and reel too. So we're not the only fly shop podcast out here. We're the newest that I'm aware of, but no, we just want to show you, the viewer, however many of you there are out there, what we have to offer you, and hopefully make your experience in Montana a little more fun and productive.
Yeah. Look forward to. We're going to touch on a variety of issues. Steve and I have both done some international guiding. I think I was the longest tenured American that fished the Rio Grande and Tierra del Fuego. I was there about 20 years. Steve mentioned he'd fished in Mongolia. We're going to touch on. We have a travel program here at Frontier Anglers. We're going to touch on some conservation issues. We're going to kind of talk about some techniques and things that we've learned between about 55 years of guiding combined between us or so. And we'll have some very interesting local color guests on occasionally, as well as some people from the industry, which we realize this is entertainment as much as it is education, and we hope to touch on both.
Sure. Yeah. Now, some of the personalities in fly fishing, I think, is one of the other reasons we like this so much, is the friends we have, the relationships we build last a lifetime. Some of that's with our clients. Oftentimes, clients over time become like family. And those are just some of the stories and experiences we want to share with you and have a little fun here on the pod.
All right, thanks for tuning in for the first ever, and hopefully not the last, Frontier Anglers Flying Around podcast. We'll be going to try to push these out about once a week when we have time, and hopefully we'll get better, and hopefully you can learn something and enjoy the half hour you spend with us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, thanks a lot, Sean, and we'll be back.